Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour podcast. I am Kyle Anthony, your host, where today we are talking UFC 308, a stacked card headlined by Ilia Topuria and Max Holloway. Just a great card overall. Today, we are going to be breaking down 4 fights, and we're breaking it down with my guy, James Lynch. James, thanks for coming on the show today, man.
Kyle, thanks for having me on. I know it's been a bit, but what a card to be talking about. This is one of the best pay-per-views this year.
Absolutely. And I think that this arguably is one of the best main events. I mean, I may be most pumped for this main event than maybe any of the other ones this year, besides some Pereira ones. But besides for that, this may be one of the better ones going here. But before we get into it, if you guys want to become a client, link down in the description. I have a 5% play up this weekend. I'm 12-0 on max bets this year. Absolutely having a great year, up over 80 units for clients. Really seeing the board well. Hopefully we keep that going this weekend. Link down in the description. If not, sit back. Me and James are going to be talking the main event and 3 other plays. So let's dive right into it. We've got the main event of the evening between Ilia Topuria and Max Holloway. An absolutely fantastic fight here. You've got Topuria, a sizable favorite here at minus 260, where you got Max Holloway plus 210, a current champion versus the former champion. How do you see this one going down there, James? Hopefully we're going to be agreeing here.
I think we probably will. I'm going with Topuria here, and it really just comes down to, Max Holloway going back down to 145. It's a tough weight cut for him. I think he'll make weight, but it's, I actually think he's better at lightweight, and we saw sort of that version, when he fought at 155 against Justin Gaethje in his last fight. But Ilia Topuria, he's got the speed. That's one thing that Gaethje, I don't think, had in that fight, and Holloway was able to capitalize. Now, the big question here is Max Holloway's never been knocked out. How long will this fight go? I know there's a lot of very confident Georgian fans who think that Topuria is going to get like a first-round finish. I don't think that's going to happen. I suppose he could submit him as well, but last submission loss for Max Holloway way back in 2012 when he fought Dustin Poirier. Don't know if that'll happen early either. Some of the totals I think are interesting in this fight. Like if you look at the over 2.5, or, if you go even a little bit later, I think things could be a little bit interesting too. But I think even if for some reason the fight goes the distance, I think Topuria still gets it, because I think what's going to happen is he's still going to land, and those shots are going to land really hard. Holloway, I know he's coming off a knockout win, but that's not typical for Holloway. He's more of a volume guy as opposed to a power puncher. Topuria's going to have the advantage there. I think he's going to get it regardless. I might also look at Topuria by decision. I know that's a crazy prop, but I mean, I've not seen Holloway knocked out, and I don't know if this is the fight where that's going to happen. So I'm certainly going to put a small play on that, but I like Topuria in this fight. I think he gets it done.
Yeah, this one, to be honest, I was back and forth when I was breaking this one down, and a couple things stuck out to me. And one, the line, I mean, this is pretty wide, and I get it. Topuria is that sexy new undefeated fighter, just destroyed Volkanovski. I get that. The only thing in the Volkanovski fight that does kind of put a little bit of an asterisk, at least for me, is that it was 4 title fights in a 12-month span, and he was just 3 months off of getting knocked out by Islam Makhachev. That does put a little bit, not taking anything away from Topuria's skill overall, but that does change things a bit for me. And then to your point, why I do think this does have some legs and this gets further than steamrolling Max Holloway in the first round is Max is historically very durable. You know what I mean? And same to your point too, is he going to keep that? When does that fall off? He's taken a lot of abuse in there. He's given a lot of abuse in there. But overall, he has only been finished one time in his career. It was a submission of Dustin Poirier in 2011. So to me, there are paths there, but the other side of it that I do look at it is the fact that Max is a rangy striker. He's got good footwork. He's got good boxing. There's no doubt that Topuria is a guy that is going to bull rush, and that's the only thing that I think can make this very interesting is those bull rushes, pushing forward, Topuria throwing those big shots, landing big and hurting him. I do think there's openings for him there, but when I look at this as just the betting side of things, it's hard to pass up Max Holloway at plus 210. I mean, it is very, very, very hard I see the path. I see all of those things. And for me, I do like, not as some monster play or anything like that, but something I just think the value is on Max. But I do like, and it's something that DraftKings is offering that you do see. I'm not sure. There's a couple sites, depending where you live, is the points. I do think that Max plus 5.5 points is at plus 100. And that to me is an interesting angle where if there's going to be, which I do think there will be some competitive rounds, and I do think that Topuria is a guy who's going to edge it. And of course, if this was even money, this fight, I take Toria. I think he's got the opportunity for that upside, the finishing upside, all of those things. But if you're looking at a competitive fight, and if you kind of think that as well as I do, I do think grabbing some points, paying for that a little bit, maybe the side here. So I don't know if have you ever done into the point side of things, or I'm one to dabble.
Really, no, but that you bring that up, that's very interesting. I'll certainly look into that for sure, because I love like props or like any little like weird thing you can find like that where you can maybe get an edge, right? So.
Yeah, so that's it. So I'm gonna go Max Holloway here as a sprinkle spot, dog or pass for me. But listen, I would not be surprised if Toria goes out there and really does a number on him and gets the job done and retains the title. But we will be in different sides there. But we definitely do agree on a couple things in that particular spot. Now, the next one here we're going to be talking about is going to be Khamzat Chimaev. He's minus 275. The comeback here on Robert Whitaker is plus 215. Now you've got the undefeated 13-0 wrestling beast versus Robert Whitaker, former champion, high-level striker overall. How do you see this one going down in the co-main event?
We might be on opposite side here, but I'm going with Whitaker. Now, look, I think this fight ends two ways. Either Chimaev's going to go out there and get the early finish, or I think Whitaker finishes him late in the fight or potentially wins the decision. But the key thing here is the 5 rounds. If this fight was only 3 rounds, I think Chimaev would be a bigger favorite, and I'd maybe even lean that way just because he does his damage early in the fight. But Rob's got 5-round experience. Rob's also fought wrestlers. I know Chimaev's a bit of a different animal, more in his prime, but I mean, Rob fought Yoel Romero twice. He's got very good wrestling. He's explosive, very similar to Chimaev. The thing I worry about with Chimaev, he's got the layoff. He doesn't have a single ranked win at middleweight. I think going from, if you think about his last middleweight opponent, which I believe, well, I guess technically Usman was middleweight, but we really know he's a welterweight. He took that on short notice. I think it was Gerald Meerschaert. Like going from Meerschaert to Whitaker is a huge jump up. And you look at 2 of his fights, the one against Gilbert Burns and the one against Usman, he did slow down as the rounds went on, just the nature of how he fights. You're not going to be able to get away with that with Whitaker, who we've seen go 5 rounds time and time again. So, to me, if you couldn't finish Burns and you couldn't finish Usman in the first round, I don't know how you finish Robert Whitaker. I know Whitaker has been finished before, only twice at middleweight, DDP and Adesanya. Those were 2 bad performances from him. But if you look at the overall body of work, Whitaker is pretty tough to take out. And I know Paulo Costa was close, but he couldn't do it. If Rob's able to survive, I don't see how you don't pick him here. I think there's a lot of betting on Chimaev's potential, betting on his cardio being better. I can't do it here. So I'm going on the Whitaker side here, and look at the discrepancy, plus 215 for a guy that really has only lost to 2 champions in the weight class. I'm taking Robert Whitaker here.
Yeah, I actually agree with you with this. I really think that it's, and what you said, it's almost like what we think Chimaev is. I mean, look, he's done a number, all of those things. He's a monster. There's a massive amount of potential there. But I think the most interesting of this fight is really going to be that first half of the first round. I mean, I know it's a 5-round fight, but that first beginning is going to tell a big sign here. You know what we're going to be getting from Chimaev. He's going to push forward. He's going to be diving at legs. He's going to try to bully him, look for those takedowns, look for that control time, and then just start hunting for submissions, hunting for the finish. And to your point, again, it's the 5-rounder, to me, really opens up opportunities here for Robert Whitaker. If Whitaker can really kind of, he's light-footed, he can work at range, he's got good takedown defense. So the layoff is one thing, the how the fight's going to play out is another thing, but then it's the cardio. To me, there has been multiple times, even in wins, you have seen Chimaev just really tilt down with cardio, with his output, with his aggression. It all starts to tilt down, and kind of his style, to me, it doesn't even allow him to kind of fight another way. Like he can't his style just is taxing to the body. His style is the type of thing where you got to move forward. He has to keep wrestling. He has to keep pushing. There isn't really a slow pace that Chimaev fights at, which again, if there's issues, cardio is one thing. And now you start sprinkling in these health concerns. Now, we're no doctors here, but there are some things that have come out there. He was, I think, in the hospital 3 or 4 months ago, not long ago. There was, before that, he had issues. There was questions of him even coming back to the sport. So many things. So it's hard to quantify what that means when you're looking at a fight, but there's got to be some kind of issues. And then we've seen the problems there. And then also to your point that, some of the wins, to me, good names in there, but, a battle with Burns, which some people debate that fight of who won, but an absolute battle. Holland, switch of opponents and could be taken down. And then even Usman, short notice, up a weight class, all these things really going in Chimaev's favor. Again, I agree. This is a spot where Robert Whitaker can work at range, land big shots. I think outside of the first round and a half, really can go his favor. And I think Whitaker is going to know in that first round, I got to play it safe. I'm not looking to win that first round. And he probably knows I'm not trying to win that first round. Let me survive. Let me get through this. So in this spot here, I think the plus money on a former champion against a guy who has really kind of been unproven is probably the spot here.
Yeah, completely agree. So we'll see. Again, like this could go both ways, but I think history has shown us Robert Whitaker might be able to survive this and potentially win a decision or get a late finish. We'll see.
Absolutely. So that's all right. We're on the same side there. And the next one here we are going to be talking about is going to be Abus Magomedov minus 140, and that line seems to be moving around, and Bruno Ferreira plus 115. Now, both these guys, you know, they're a little bit of wild cards. They're both of them with some bad cardio on top of that here. So how do you see this one playing out here with Bruno and Abus?
I'm going with Abus Magomedov here. But again, this is a fight that I agree with you. I'm very, very worried about it because like Abus Magomedov, he's a great first round fighter. But outside of that, like we saw in the Strickland fight and we've seen in other performances, he's not able to go and do too much. And if you look at it, it's kind of weird. They have similar opponents. They both finished Dustin Stolfus, who in my opinion is a fighter that is hanging on to his job in the UFC. Bruno Ferreira's other win was against Phil Hawes, a guy who's not in the UFC, who's actually fighting this weekend on the regional scene. So there's just not a huge sample size. And even Abus's last win over Warley Alves, I mean, this is a welterweight, right? Like he basically fought his entire career there and then moved up to middleweight just shortly after that. So I can't put too much stock into it, but if I'm picking between the two, I think Abus looks a little bit more explosive in the first round, so I'll take him there. But this is one of those fights from a betting perspective I'm just staying away from. I think even at minus 140, I don't think Abus is worth it, if we're being honest here.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting here because my thing is, I actually thought Bruno at first was, I kind of like what I was seeing at first couple fights ago. And the thing about him, he is really, he both these guys, I guess, but he really flatlines it and goes for it in that first round. 100% finish rate, 12 fights, 12 wins, 10 in the first round, 2 in the second round. So we don't even know what happens there if things get extended. But obviously, both these guys do have cardio issues. But even on his same thing, even on his 2 wins against Dustin Stoltzfus and RoboCop, you know, they were kind of landing some good shots, and it was getting very sloppy all of a sudden for Bruno. And then he lands a crazy shot, and that's the one thing. He does have the equalizer. He can land that at any point, puts you out there. But I do think that the way and the recklessness that Bruno comes in, I do think that you're going to see Magomedov, he's going to sell out for takedowns. I think he really is going to do the same thing that he did with Worley. He's going to look for takedowns, look for position. I don't think he wants to stand and just have a striking bout in this spot here. I do think that Bruno has opportunity to do his own wrestling, but I think he has worse cardio, and I think he has worse skill, well-rounded out skill than Magomedov. And that's where I think you're going to have Bruno coming in very hard, big, heavy boxing. Level change will be there for him. Now, can he get it? That's a whole nother thing. But I think as this fight goes on, I think that Magomedov can get some cage pushing, hold him down. I think this actually either is going to be somebody gets sparked in the first minute, or this is going to be a sloppy 3-rounder. And I think that's kind of where this one goes here. And also that I do like that Abus has the, a 6-inch reach advantage, 3-inch height advantage. So it will, again, the way that Bruno's going to come forward and throw big hooks, it's going to be hard to cut that 6-inch distance. It's going to be hard for him to get some range. And I do think that's where Abus can work at range, work in spots. Now, the minus 140 is a little more than probably I want to spend on somebody like Magomedov here, to your point. But in this spot, I think I got to go with him in here. Think he can get the job done. Can be sloppy, but I think he can get the job done and get the victory here.
Yeah, completely agree with all that.
All right, so last one here we're going to talk about here is going to be, now this one may be the battle for people online here, where some people are completely selling on Shera, and some people are absolute. I've never heard Armen Petrosian be talked up so much, but this is an interesting spot here. You've got Shera minus 155. This line opened up around minus 250, which is pretty crazy at some books. It has absolutely been all Petrosian here. So you agree with that line movement, and how do you see this kind of playing out here?
Yeah, I do agree with it. I think I talked about it on my show too. Like, I think Petrosian is definitely a live dog here. I mean, and there's like a history between these two, which I was unaware of. We just recorded the Gambler's Perspective today, and our guest Gamluke was on and mentioned that there's some history there. So that makes me kind of like Petrosian even more. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, listen, you got to remember the UFC, they like Shera. They keep putting him on these Middle East cards. They obviously have something invested in him. I remember he's at International Fight Week. They were getting him to do a bunch of media. Like, they're obviously high on him. So I can't imagine they're going to put him in Abu Dhabi in a fight that he's potentially going to lose here. So I know that sounds weird, but I do factor that stuff in. But here's the thing.
I agree.
Petrosian is, yeah, I mean, this is going to be a striking battle. Shera's not going to take him down. Like, he's actually kind of anti-Dagestani in that way. Like, he's not a guy that's going to go and make this into like a wrestle fest. I think it's going to stay striking. So I see it being even. Where I give Shera the slight edge there is just that I think there's a little bit more potential, but then I'm also worried about the cardio. This again is another fight where it's dog or pass for me. I'm not betting the favorite. I know it's minus 155, but I just like, I can't pull the trigger on a guy who has not really impressed me. Like, I remember people talking about his debut and all the great things he's done. And I'm like, well, he hasn't fought great opposition, and he also hasn't like wowed me either. So I think he'll get it done. But again, like this line, and I wish I would have known he was such a big underdog opening, because I would have definitely laid that. Plus 136, I might lay some on Petrosian. With all that said, though, I'll take Shera Bullet, because to me, there's more upside.
Yeah, I mean, if this fight was taking place almost anywhere else, I think I would be even higher on Petrosian here. I mean, I know some people don't buy into that, and to your point, same thing. It's, if there's an obvious person who they want to win in this spot. It doesn't really work out that way, obviously, but I do think that Shera has opportunity here. I do think there's that can work out well for him. But the thing about this fight mostly is that really, I do think that Shera wants space. I think he's a guy that's going to want to have a pretty striking match. As much as we think he's this absolute savage, he wants range, he wants to throw some kicks, and he wants like one or two strikes, and then he wants to back out, and he wants some slow pace, and then he wants to maybe throw a couple, strikes, and then slow. And I feel like that kind of rinse and repeat. We've seen guys who do push forward, who do throw, who he beat, and lower level guys who did find a little bit of success in certain spots. Either they gassed, or they just don't have the cardio, or they just don't have the skill level, or whatever it was. But this, I do think that Petrosian here is absolutely live as a dog. I think that he has opportunity here to do something, because I think the volume also for Petrosian has been good. I think that that's going to be more of inside kicking range, a boxing type of fight there. And then it is the trump card could be, does he level change? Does he shoot for a takedown? I don't think he turns into Khabib in this particular spot, but I think that he has to change it up. He has to throw something in there. Even if he doesn't get it, get Shera thinking. And I think that opens up a totally new world for him when he's pushing forward, when he's throwing his shots there. So I do agree with this line movement. The home cooking is the only thing that does worry me in this spot here, because any tight round, you got to think that Shera is going to get it. So you wonder if Petrosian's going to know that and really have to put a stamp on any round that he does have an advantage in. So I do agree with this too here. I think that Petrosian is probably the spot here and the value spot. And also, again, the upside though, where this line goes, if this line continues to go down, I may change my spot there and say this, Magomedov, Shera is the one to where the value does lie there. So in this spot here, I am going to go Petrosian, and I am going to take that plus money.
There you go. Yeah, I can see it. Tricky fight. There's a couple tricky fights on here, and yeah, this is one of them for sure. Yeah, it could be a bit of a trap, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So there you have it. There are plays. We will see how we do this Saturday night. Absolutely stacked card. Again, if you want to become a client, link down in the description. And James, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate the time, man.
Kyle, appreciate it. Anytime you want me on, always happy to talk fights with you, man. I appreciate it.
All right, James. And we will do this again next week, and let's cash.